more than welcome to the Coffee at 11 show on this beautiful Friday morning. And this is episode 55 of the Coffee at 11 show, brought to you by wigwam.ie SME Peer Support. And I'm delighted and excited to introduce you to a friend of mine, a gentleman I've known for some years now, for many years as it happens. We soldiered together back in the day here in the Midwest of Ireland, and a guy I've admired for his achievements for so long. And that is the good man himself, Padraic Frawley. You are more than welcome, Padraic. Please say hello and show us a coffee cup or mug that you have.
I'm on takeaway because our coffee machine is switched off. So Starbucks is reopened across the road, which is great. Thank you, Colm, for inviting me, and thank you very much for the lovely intros from Eamon and Princess Shelley. So delighted to be here. Thank you very much.
Indeed, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure, Padraic. Lovely to have you in the room. Let me just tell you a small amount about the man himself before we bring him in. So Padraic, back in 1999, came up with an idea where he wanted to offer fabulous local food served beautifully alongside great drinks. And so Cornstore Restaurants were born here in Ireland, in Cork and Limerick, followed in succession by Coqbull Restaurants. And then Padraic decided to take his talents and go to London to the bright lights and go again, and formed the East London Pub Company. Looking forward to hearing all about that because it's been a while since he and I have connected. It's all about locally sourced food served with passion, and any of us that have been fortunate enough to have dined or experienced any of your eateries or hostelries will concur with that for sure. Almost 400 employees. That's incredible. Almost 400 employees. Well done, you and your team. You're hotel trained. You love the hospitality business and the training and development of people. That's obvious. You're passionate about creating brands. That's obvious too. And creating businesses. And you're an avid cook and entertainer. And I think any of us, as I say, that have met you would go along with all of that. Something that I didn't know, and most of our guests in the cafe this morning would not have known. You have an irrational fear of heights. Welcome, Padraic Frawley. Great to have you in the cafe.
Thank you very much.
In your own words, young man, in your own words, take us through the journey. Go back to those early days. Where did it all start, please?
Well, I was born in Limerick, as you know, in West Limerick, and grew up on a farm. I was the oldest son, so there was a huge expectation for me to follow in those footsteps of becoming the farmer in the family. And I think from quite a young age, I realized that I wasn't a huge fan of the smell of something. So I advised my parents that I was not going to be a farmer. My aunt owned a B&B, so I was in there every summer kind of looking after guests, and with my grandmother, who passed away last year at the ripe old age of 99. And it kind of got me really interested in the area of hospitality. So I, much to my mother's disappointment, didn't go on and do medicine in Dublin, decided to do hotel management in Shannon instead. And that was the beginning of the love affair with the hospitality business and sector. I love hotels, love bars, restaurants, and I guess it's a way of life. It's a vocation. You have to be very dedicated to the cause. It's very hard work. But, over the last 21 years, I've been slowly but surely building up quite a good company. And I, at the beginning of this year, I thought after 21 years in business, we are going to have our biggest and best year ever, because we had 3 new planned openings, 1 in Ireland, 2 in London. So we were going to go from 8 to 11 businesses, and the carry-on plan was to get to 20 businesses within the next 3 years. And we were firmly on track to do that. Anyway, shit happens, as they say, so here we are. Here we are.
It turns out you don't like the smell of that stuff.
Do you know what? You got to deal with what you got to deal with, and that's the bottom line of it. And that's that's the joy of life. That's the joy of being in business. You have good years, you have bad years. This is an unprecedented year, but everybody's in the same boat. I mean, I've been through difficult years before. 2008, 9, 10 and on were very difficult years for the company.
Before we go there, because a feature of the Coffee at 11 shows, we'd like to get to know the guest in the seat just at a little deeper level, if you don't mind. I loved Granny, God rest her, at 99. Loved that you were honest about your mother being gutted that her firstborn wouldn't go and do medicine, so she could tell the neighbours he's doing medicine up in Dublin. Instead, his notions about hospitality going out to Shannon. That's all very real stuff. So growing up, we Patricia Roberts on the other day. She might, in fact, join us today. She was delighted to hear you were coming on the.
Yeah, I missed her unfortunately the other day.
But she said to say hi, and she also had a farming background out in County Limerick. So what's going on here that the farming generation has decided to turn to hospitality?
I don't know what the link is, but obviously there's a link with the food because, in Ballingarry, where, I live in London now most of the time, but in Ballingarry where my kids are and my ex-wife, we have some amazing gardens. So we are producing and have been for about 5 years some of our produce during the summer for the Cornstore Restaurant in Limerick and in Cork. And I've now got some tunnels full of salad leaves and loads of herbs and nowhere to put them. There's enough mint to do a couple of thousand mojitos this weekend, but anyway, nowhere to sell them, unfortunately. But anyway, so we're chopping some of it. I'm just giving it away locally for free, obviously. So anyway, that's all.
And is that then where the love of food came from? Is that how this journey started?
I think my passion for food, my grandmother was an amazing cook and an amazing baker. And from a very young age, I was kind of, licking the bowl and, getting into the whole idea of cooking. And, I just love cooking. And actually, it's funny. I've been so busy in the last 10 years that this downtime has allowed me to reconnect with my love affair of cooking. And I'd actually kind of forgotten that I'm actually pretty good at it. I keep it very classic and very simple. But, I've enjoyed putting together some, I've been getting some recipes from some of my chefs, trying out some, some ideas of my own. And then, I've been posting on Instagram, maybe intentionally putting a little bit of pressure under people to remind them I actually can cook, even though I own restaurants, because it's years since I've been in kitchens. I've got some real amazing guys behind me that are, directors and have been with the company for, 15 plus years. And Mike Ryan, who's director of the company in Cork, kind of, steers everything in the culinary end of things. And, is such an expert that I just kind of, have left the food side of things alone. I've been focusing on the strategic growth of the company.
Corey, I'm glad you touched on that because you're an interesting individual animal, dare I say it, in terms of the industry, because if you're good at something, if you find yourself good at cooking, often great chefs don't make great restaurateurs, if that makes sense, because their passion is what's on the plate, which is a huge part of what we do, what the hospitality industry does. And for those that don't know, I'm ex that industry too, right? A reformed hospitality person.
You.
See the grey hair?
We all have it.
Yeah. And we're both 27 folks, just by the way, we're both 27. Listen, but no, there's this tendency that if somebody's, good at the knitting, dare I say it, that they stick to it. You've taken your passion and you've sort of stepped to, if you like, put it to one side by your own admission. You haven't cooked in a long time, haven't been in the kitchen for a long time, but you've taken that passion and your knowledge and you've gone on to create 8 businesses, was to be 11, or soon to be 11, and
it will be. We're on pause. That's it.
Love it. Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. I remember when Cornstore came to Limerick, and it sort of blew everybody away. Are you in Cornstore, Limerick, as you speak? I think
I am. Yes. Yeah.
And big investment.
That was we opened in November in 2008, and at a cost of 4.3 million. And that today would be a big cost in the middle of central London, where you're surrounded by a huge population. It was mind-blowing at the time. And, I guess I didn't really realize it because it was, it was one of those projects where I was able to borrow a lot of money at the time from the banks, were just dishing it out to me. And as they dished it out, well, I spent it. And I spent it on the best of stuff. I have quite a simple eye when it comes to things, but that simple taste that I have seems always to be at the top end of the pricing bracket. So over the years, I've learned to curb it down a little bit here and there. Not much, but anyway, a little bit.
I'd say your team have challenged reining you in at times. But folks, if you haven't yet been to Cornstore Limerick when it reopens, make sure you get in there, because it speaks every cent of that 4 million. Beautiful. But actually, the timing of that couldn't have been great either. 2008.
Well, we opened 2 months after Lehman Brothers went bust, and you know, the world overnight became a very different place. You know, banks were in serious trouble. There was no cash available. But actually, you know, we had a new product. We were the new kid on the block, so we were actually very busy the first 12 months. I mean, it was just phenomenal. And what people didn't do was, I mean, they reduced their holidays, they might have stopped changing their car, but actually people went out. They still maintained that as a treat. So we went into early bird menus, which became 70% of our business at 25 euro for 3 courses. So by offering value, we actually were, you know, we were well placed to stay in business and we actually made very good profit during those years as well. You know, but the cost of doing business in 2008 was a lot cheaper than it is today. And obviously the labor cost was a lot cheaper. So, you know, today we've just got very different challenges. At least we were open, then we could trade and we could
I get it.
We'll be back into that territory in the next month.
Oh, you will, and we're all looking forward to it, and we're all rooting for sensible social distancing rules being brought here in here in Ireland, because it's a bit crazy at the moment.
Yeah.
Before we go there, though, you know, you said that you're into brands, and I get that, and you're very good at creating a brand and, you know, packaging it. Which came first? Did Coqbull come first, or did the move to London come first? I can't recall.
The move to London came first, and when I was in London, I decided that I was going to create a new brand. So I wanted to set up a restaurant in London that was very simple, very streamlined, would be cost effective from a wage perspective, you know, and just a simpler style of operation, because the Cornstore operations, while they're very big and very busy, they employ an enormous amount of people. Each restaurant in Limerick and Cork is almost 60 staff. So that entails over 20 people behind the scenes in the kitchen, which of course nobody sees. And every single thing we do is made from scratch. Now the same applies in Coqbull, but it's of a simpler basis with a lower expectation. And, you know, it was during those tough years that we would, like, people think the recession lasted a couple of years and maybe Dublin recovered quicker than the rest of the country, which obviously it did. But I mean, certainly Limerick and Cork were very slow coming out of the recession. I got an opportunity to get my hands on a building in Cork that I thought would make an ideal Coqbull, even though it took me a while to come up with that brand, and I worked with a brand company in London. And Natalie Gibbs, who's a very creative person, who's a personal friend of mine who may be listening in actually, I gave her a brief. I told her exactly what I wanted to create. And I went into the offices one day and she said, I have your name. And I said, okay, hit me with the list. She said, I've only got one. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So she did it up on a board. She took down the name, revealed Coqbull. Coq is obviously the French for chicken. Bull in terms of the whole beef burger side. And I was like, done, that's the name. She was like, what? She was like, wow, I wasn't expecting this. I said, nor was I. It's the first time in my life I expected to choose. I would normally get 100 names and then say, no. And eventually, you know, it's like going into a shop, buying a piece of clothing. You end up going back to the first one. It was one name, that was it. I loved it. We loved everything about the brand. You know, it was cheeky and, you know, it was at a time in my life which was challenging personally and interesting personally, because I mean, you know, I have been married and came out to my wife that I was gay. So this whole Coqbull brand came in around that time, and, you know, my team basically ran with it and they just loved it. And it's allowed us to be really just a little bit cheeky in terms of the whole brand experience of it. And we didn't think, when we opened this in Cork, because the plan was to open it somewhere cool and edgy in East London. I said to the guys in Cork, I said, right, tame it down now. This was created for London, so tame it down for Cork. Well, they didn't tame it down in the slightest. They actually went way OTT, and people just loved it. And I mean, you know, I think we opened our restaurant, I think we were, the targets for year one that we were to do 27, 28,000. And you know how you slightly overinflate these figures to get banking. We were doing 45,000 a week within 3 months. So it was one of those that was kind of a runaway success, and we were like, okay, let's go with it. So then we, so I had a nightclub site in Limerick, which was where I first started in '99, called O'Bars. And, you know, the nightclub business had become dead in the water. I'd actually closed it down. Even though it was busy, we were losing money because insurance costs had spiraled out of control. And we decided to put it in there. And took us a little bit longer to get us going in Limerick because the demographic just wasn't the same. So we had to go out there and appeal to different things, and then we had to tweak and evolve the brand. But within 18 months, we had that rocking as well. And then that led on to the opening in the suburbs in Limerick and Castletroy at the end of last year.
And we go there in a moment, but thank you for that. Love the fact that that lady was brave enough to present you with one name, and delighted that it worked, and it does exactly what it says in tin, folks. And I love the fact that you had it in your mind that you'd open somewhere edgy and cool in East London, and then sort of tried it in Cork, and that the lads went with it. And thank you for sharing that personal piece of the puzzle, if you like. Appreciate that, because it's really about real people coming into the cafe and being real in front of other real people, because by us doing that, it frees up other people to, you know, consider what's going on in their lives. And
of course,
it's okay because somebody else has challenged their own.
Yeah. Well, life is about being real at every level of it, really. And, you know, the longer we're around and the longer we're in business, and, you know, the more we realize that. And, you know, you just have to live your life in the best way possible, really, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And my daughter said to me in recent years, she said, Dad, so long as you're being true to yourself, that's okay by me. And I thought it was a lovely sentiment. So look, great journey. I think we're about to go to London, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we've been in London. So I've been in London about 7.5 years now. And my main reason for going to London was because in the, you know, I had a lot of property, I had a lot of negative equity, and I needed a plan B and a bit of an escape plan in case the banks weren't willing to deal with me back in 2008-9. So, you know, I dealt with that scenario for 4 or 5 years, and then realized, well, they might deal, they may not deal. So I opened Coqbull in Cork, and then I was in London, and I had found myself a pub in London that I was able to do a deal on. And actually they opened within a week of each other. So the first pub was in Spitalfields. So I didn't go to the opening of the Coqbull in Cork. So the guys here managed that, and I did the one in London. And I wanted to create something. I mean, you know, I kind of fell out of pubs, you know, because obviously I owned a bar and nightclub, and I kind of fell out of love with that business because, you know, when you're entrepreneurial, you want to make money. And when a business starts losing money, it's very easy to fall out of love with it. It doesn't matter how passionate you are about it. You know, if something is costing you money every month, as it was. So I decided to close that business. And then when I was in London, I was trying to open restaurants, quite difficult to open restaurants. And then I was looking at the pub opportunity, and I thought, oh my God, all these English boozers are so busy. Because despite the reputation that the Irish have as being some of the biggest boozers in the world, we're not. The English are much bigger boozers, but there's a key difference. They do it over a longer extended period of days, whereas we tend to go first for one night. We die for a couple of days, and then we say we're never drinking again, and then we go back a week later and we repeat ourselves all over again. So I think, I just thought, I mean, a lot of these boozers were doing massive business, and I just saw an opportunity to run them so much better, where you'd really nice clean toilets, where you'd a really good cross-section of product mix, and you know, I mean, even the basic things, because you know, the lights are always, even up to closing time at 11 o'clock, most pubs in London, the lights are on full blast. And I was like, as we're getting older, we need dim lighting. So all of those simple basic things. So 10 Bells was the beginning of the East London Pub Co journey in London. I wanted to create something a little bit edgy and cool. Even though I'm 47, I still think I'm edgy and cool. Maybe I'm not, my children mightn't think I am, but I think I am. And I set about setting up this company called East London Pub Co, and I thought, oh my God, if I could create something like that. And extraordinarily enough, the name was available. So I registered that as company name, trademarked the name, and I was like, right, this is the beginning of that. So 10 Bells, from within about 3 years, I had increased the sales in that premises by 50-60%, and had tripled the bottom line profit. And of course, that gave me a big opening then to go to banks and say, you know, look at what I'm doing, will you support me in this and that? And, you know, suddenly the banks started dishing it out again. So I've had a lot of dish out in the last couple of years. And funnily enough, I now mainly bank in Sweden with a private bank in Stockholm who back entrepreneurs, and they're superb to deal with because it's allowed me to retain full ownership of the company, other than a couple of directors that I've given shares to. And, you know, so it's very much a family affair. And, you know, we've got our businesses across the board to about $500,000 a week. So the plan, or $500,000 a week. So about 25 million a year turnover company. And that's really doubled in the last 3 years. And the plan was to double it again in the next 3 or 4. So
I think it'll happen.
That's still the plan, but we might have to tack a year onto it, I think.
Yeah, but that's okay. The COVID year, everybody gets a free pass for COVID.
That's fine. We're just writing off 2020.
Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Great stuff. Bula Bus, ladies and gentlemen. Bula Bus. Lee Rodey of Steel. Great stuff. Interesting to hear the banks are dishing it out again, and you're saying, great, I'll take more of it. Thanks very much indeed.
That's in Stockholm. I'm not sure it's true in Ireland.
Well, actually, we have a lovely lady, Anne Kristen, who usually zooms into the cafe every day from Sweden, from Malmo in Sweden. I'm not sure that she's in the cafe today. It's very busy, so I can't see everybody. But I'm sure she says hi. Listen, fascinating stuff. A couple of things that I want to pick you up on, if I may. It's all about team. It's all about team. This is a common theme that has come up through on the Coffee at 11 show. We're not, even though we might be started out as solopreneurs, we can't remain so. We've got to build a team. And you said that in the same week, you opened Spitalfields and Coqbull in Cork, and you did one and the team did the other. Love that. Love that can happen. I thought it was very honest of you, the right thing to say, that you took a business call on what was O'Barr's, which is now Coqbull and Limerick, to close it because it was hemorrhaging money. And oftentimes, folks, you're better to close the business than to trade at a loss, because you know you mightn't lose any less, but you get rid of a whole lot of headache. And we're heading into very uncertain times, I suppose, uncharted waters in relation to hospitality reopening. What's it like in the UK for reopening? Because here, as you know, there's a 2-meter rule. Restaurants are looking like they won't.
We don't know yet. I mean, I don't want to criticize any governments because even though I'm about to, it's hard to criticize governments because obviously this has been such a difficult journey for people. We're not scientists, we're not doctors, so the reality of it is that we don't know. But as business people, we do have a lot of common sense, and you have to look at the age demographic that has been massively affected here. And in the UK, 90% of the people that have died have been over the age of 65. 80% have been over the age of 82. So you've got a population in the UK of 70 million people in lockdown for those statistics. And I just wonder, will history look back on this and think that there was a massive overreaction fueled by the media? Because if this was 25 years ago, we wouldn't know what was going on to the same degree in the world because we just didn't have access to it every minute of every day in our hands, you know, in terms of the live updates. And look, it's a pandemic. There's no doubt it's been really serious. Ireland has managed it very well in relation to, you know, how quickly we went into lockdown. So the mortality rates here are low, which is superb. But of course, you know, because I bank in Sweden and because they haven't closed down, I mean, there is a degree where they think that all we're doing is we're deferring the spike until later on in the year because, you know, it almost needs to kind of rip through the population. Now, their herd immunity has not been proved because that's the basis on which they've been working on. So who knows? I don't know the answer to that question. However, what I do know is that, you know, we're in the summertime. There is very little virus in Limerick and Cork where we're trading. I knew a lot of people, even in London, I knew a lot of people 4 or 5 weeks ago that had the virus. I don't know anybody anywhere. And if you look at, I mean, our stats as a company, you know, a lot of those staff are in London. Nobody within our company that we're aware of has actually had the virus. Now, maybe some people have had, maybe some people have, but obviously haven't been tested. So the antibodies test is really important. I think I've had the virus myself in March. And as soon as I go back to London in a couple of weeks, the first thing I'm going to be doing is getting that antibodies test done. And hopefully I've had it because then I'm just going to crack on with things. But there is a sense of we need to crack on with life. And, you know, in the UK, you know, they've been slow with decisions. They were slow closing down. However, the furlough scheme that they've introduced in the UK in terms of covering the COVID payments was a more fair and equitable system than the one introduced here. So everybody got 80% of their wages, you know, and having a blanket 350 for everybody looked after some people immensely well. Now I know Leo Varadkar has come out yesterday and has corrected that and has reduced it down to 203 for part-time staff. But even so, some of our part-time staff work 10 or 12 hours a week, so they still get paid more than they were actually getting paid when they were working. So how are we incentivizing young people to come back to work? You know, so these are our challenges of how we actually open. I also think that, you know, they're going to have to seriously subsidize the hospitality sector for a while. And I'm not sure that the penny has dropped on that basis. There's 250,000 people employed in the hospitality sector currently out of work in Ireland. And, you know, the industry will come back. We don't know when it's going to come back. And they need to make quick decisions. I mean, you know, debating, it's not possible for restaurants to reopen at 2 meter distancing, which they're holding firm on. And, you know, there are ways and there are measures, like we need very simple guidelines and measures as to how we can actually open, divide up areas. We don't need 2 meters to be safe. We can do it at a meter. I went through Cornstore in Cork on Wednesday, and at a meter, that's a 200-seater restaurant, and at a meter, we can open with 120 seats. You know, and somebody said to me this morning, oh my God, it's amazing you can have 120 seats. And I was like, well, yes, it is, because we're lucky that we've got space within the restaurants, but we've also got the overheads associated with having huge spaces. We've got huge teams of people to try and get back into work. But equally so, if the restaurant was hugely profitable at 200 seats, we're still minus 80 covers for every sitting over a 7-day period. And now the only demand we have generally is on a Friday and Saturday, unless we've got graduations or whatever on. But look, it's tricky and it's challenging, but you know, in some respects, it's quite easy to close down a country, but getting it reopened, this is where the politicians really need to show their salt in terms of their ability to drive on with things. And my sense of things is that, you know, we need to get people back in employment. We need to get people circulating and moving during this better weather period, because if that doesn't come until the autumn, they're expecting a spike from, you know, natural flus and various things in the autumn in any case.
Wow, well. Challenging times ahead. You know, interesting to hear your perspective, Padraic, because you actually have fingers in, you know, Ireland, the UK and Scandinavia. So it's really interesting. You've got a perspective that most of us don't have. And it's,
well, there's a great upside to that, but of course there's also a downside to that, because it depends who I'm having a conversation with. So I'm like, what are the rules here? What are the rules there? But anyway.
Okay, but at a very basic level, I think you've sort of nailed it. You also started by saying, I'm not a doctor. And you've honoured, if you like, the medical profession and the guidance that they're giving us, which is the best intended guidance to keep everybody safe.
100%.
And I think Tony Houlihan has done a wonderful job, dare I say.
Yeah.
And the other gentleman, Michael Murphy, I think it is, on the WHO senior executive. So I think all that is wonderful, but we are absolutely challenged with reopening the economy. Absolutely. I was out, first time I've driven out of Killaloe in 3 months. Yesterday, I had to go to a meeting on the Ennis Road, and I stopped by a takeaway. I got decided I'd do a drive-through, right? And I was met with the masks, right? Like bomb disposal experts. I was sort of shocked by it. And you spoke about 200 seats down in Cork, which is wonderful, right? And people say this is great, we can have 120. That's a 40% reduction in capacity. But as you absolutely rightly said, your overhead, the cost of the premise is still at 100%. There are only certain aspects of this that you can tweak. So very challenging all around. We are where we are. We can't turn the clock back. I was talking to somebody else this morning, and they were talking about some cholera, I think it was, that hit Ireland back in the 1800s, and 300,000 people died. Okay, 300,000 people died, and they realised that in retrospect it was the wakes that people insisted on having for the dead that actually had the thing continue. And there's one tiny little story, a place called Mud Island. I didn't even know it existed in Dublin City, and Mud Island was an island, and they kept they kept everybody out, and nobody died in Mud Island. So, the lockdown has had huge positive impact in terms of keeping people safe. Challenges. 100% agree with you. How are we going to reopen? That's the challenge. So, right. That said, you had 400 people, fabulously, passionately serving wonderful food and great drinks up to 12 weeks ago. The shutter came down. You're in lockdown. You're in a closed restaurant as we speak, talking to us, and thank you for taking the time. Roll on 6 months. What do you hope will happen?
Well, I think they're all going to be reopened. I think we'll be offering scaled back versions of what we've been doing. So we'll be trying to streamline our operations. We probably will be cutting our opening hours significantly. So, the corn stores, for example, are only going to open for lunch business at the weekend, because we were getting 10 or 12 quid for lunch in 2010. It doesn't make sense to be doing it in 2020 with increased costs of wage costs of 30 or 40% more. So I think we will be doing, so we're just rehashing our websites at the moment. So I think delivery, click and collect, takeaway food will be part of our business model going forward. And, I think we'll get a lot of local support when people come back out and are allowed back out. Nobody's been out for 3 months. People aren't spending money. And I think that, obviously it's unlikely people are going to get away on holidays this year. So I think the reality of it is that, it will be a treat to go out for dinner with your family or your kids or partners or meet friends again. And, slowly start moving. So that's where I see it. I've worries about how we control the pub sector, because once we're apparently we're going to be allowed reopen in July in London, and it's going to be very difficult to control those crowds, because half the population now couldn't care less, and half the population are terrified. So the ones going to the pubs, and I'm going to be one of them, the ones going to the pubs are going to be, I mean, how do you control people after they have 3 or 4 drinks and they haven't seen anybody for months? I mean, I've got 4 friends that are isolated on their own in London for 3 months. Now they're starting to meet people in parks, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of huggy, touchy-feely, I think.
Well said, Padraic. But for what it's worth, I think there's huge pent-up demand out there. People are dying to get out. I think the hospitality sector, the restaurants in particular, cafes, are going. Their challenge is going to be managing the queues at the doors like Aldi and Lidl are, right? As opposed to, they won't be standing at the street looking for people.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And standing out of the street, perhaps holding the tide back. Look, please God, for everybody's sake, we come back to some form of new normal and as quickly as we can. And we wish you every success, Padraic.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure having you come in, and thanks for that wonderful trip through what goes on in the life of a serial entrepreneur in the hospitality sector. Just beautiful. Listen, going to go to Q&A from the floor as we always do in just a moment. But before we do, as I always do, I ask my special guest for one tip. What would you tell your nearest and dearest? You will get through COVID, come out in great shape the far side by doing blah. What's the blah for Padraic Frawley?
Right now at the moment, I went into a little bit of limbo land myself in the first month because I was dealing with a lot of residual problems, for want of a better word. I have a better word for it, but I won't use it. But, I get up at 7:30 every morning, I do a HIIT class, and it focuses my brain for the day. And, I'm not really focusing on next year or the year after as I normally would be. I'm focusing on getting through day by day, week by week. We're 12 weeks into this, and I think that, we've just got to take it bit by bit and be very wary about reopening businesses, because I've no problem if the company doesn't make any money for 12 months, but we've already lost a colossal amount of money, and I don't want to lose any more by reopening. We need the guidance as soon as possible. We need those guidelines, and then we can rock and roll.
Lovely stuff, Padraic. Thank you for that. I think all eyes are on government. I'm not mistaken, it's next week, the 8th. There are some guidelines promised, so all going well, they'll be...
fingers crossed, absolutely.
They'll be sensible. Okay, folks, Padraic, that's fantastic, so thank you for that. Who'd like to comment or ask a question? You sort of need to wave at the camera. Right, Lisa Chalfa, you're welcome, and you're live.
Thank you. Padraic, thanks so much for sharing your story, and congratulations on your empire, which is continuing to grow. I loved your start, your grandmother. My grandmother also had a B&B and instilled a passion for serving people in me. You've taken it a bit further than I have, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
My business is Griffin Solutions International, and I'm passionate about customer service, customer experiences, and I deliver training. I'm just very curious to know if there are any particular instructions that you're giving to your staff in relation to dealing with customers right now in the situation that we're in, and in order to deliver experiences that are going to make you stand out and your staff stand out. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of challenges in relation to wearing masks and all of that kind of thing. So I'm just curious on your take on the whole customer experience end of things, please.
Yeah, it's something actually that I've been thinking about a lot in the last couple of days, because I'm not, and I've actually rang a lot of friends to get their feel for, because we have to, we want to open as soon as possible on the 29th or June or the first week of July. But I want to make sure that the sentiment is right, that there'll be enough customers to come in, because the worst case scenario would be is that we would bring people back to work and we'd lose more money, and then might end up reclosing again. And obviously, historically, July and August have been tricky times in terms of doing business in city centres anyway. In terms of customer service, I personally have been worried about the fact that if I go in and sit down and have a meal in a restaurant and somebody is serving me a plate of food with a mask on them and saying, enjoy your meal over a mask, am I going to feel that that's the normal, regular experience for me? And interestingly enough, a friend of mine called me from Nice in the south of France this morning, who's just reopened a Michelin star restaurant. And that was my very question to him. I said, does it not feel weird? And he said, funnily enough, it feels like a new normal, that we've gone into a new, very hygienic way of being with people. And they have been really busy the first week of opening, which he wasn't expecting. So, I think, once people feel safe, and obviously some people don't, so some people won't move out for a while. And, I think some people, once they start getting back into the new norm, and they go in and they get together with friends. I mean, I think what we've all missed very much so is the connection with friends. And it doesn't matter whether it's over coffee whether it's over an ice cream or whether it's over a gourmet meal. It's about getting together with people, isn't it? And obviously, our favourite way to do that is breaking bread in a restaurant, you know, sharing a few bottles of Eno and having some nice food. And those are the kind of the basic normals that we've become used to. So I suspect that, you know, we'll get back to that quicker than we think. You know, it might be a little bit slow in the beginning. Some people will be very keen, some won't. But the customer service side of things, obviously we're going to have to be super, super careful dealing with customers, because, you know, everybody is going to judge us in terms of how we're operating. So that's going to be quite a big challenge to deal with, I think.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So a very pertinent question, Lisa. Thank you for that. And it's great to have so many people from the broad hospitality sector in the cafe today having a listen in, because everybody's challenged with the same stuff. And as I said yesterday, I was blown away. I don't know why I wasn't expecting it, but the bomb disposal, that's the only way I can describe it, mask, greeting me at the drive-through. Listen, we wish you every success, Padraic, and all of your people, all of your team in reopening and reimagining post-COVID, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great because you'll make it great. Going to Princess Shelley. Princess Shelley, what's been happening in the cafe, please?
Hey, thanks, Padraic. It's certainly lovely to listen to your journey, and we've got some lovely comments that have come in throughout the interview. Mags O'Connor is joining us in the cafe. Welcome, Mags. Mags says she loves Padraic's passion for life and his enthusiasm for absolutely everything. His glass is always, capitalised, half full. If you want to surround yourself with positive people in life, he is your man, she says, capitalised. A fab boss and very inspirational. Love him, XXX. Love that, Mags. Thank you very much.
We love Mags. This company wouldn't function without her, because Mags is the one that does all of our sales, social media. So she's the driver of all of that, and is a genius at it.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, thank you for your lovely comment, Mags. We love getting comments like that here in the cafe. Kieran is joining us as well in the cafe today, Kieran Linehan, and he messaged in saying, Coqbull on Academy Street in Cork is superb, love it, highly recommend it, and it does gluten-free for us celiacs. So just thanking you there for that, and thank you for your comment coming in. I have a very quick question there actually come in as well, Padraic, from Declan and Joanne. And I said, what does Padraic expect with his food and drink suppliers to help his business when we can reopen? So have you any thoughts on that, Padraic?
Yeah, I think we've spoken to a number of them already, and they've all been hugely supportive in terms of, you know, parking debt and helping us get going again. We have a long-standing relationship of 20 years with most of them, and you know, I've always been able to pay. So I think most suppliers will work with people. Obviously, there may be an element of paying weekly direct debits or cash and delivery. So, you know, we're not adding to any, because, you know, they obviously are under pressure and they have to collect money as well. But I think our experience of them to date has been great. They're all willing to work together and be supportive. And obviously, they need us to sell as much as we need to in order for their businesses to flourish also. So I think they'll all be fine.
I love the compassion that you have both in all directions from your point of view as a restaurateur. You know, it's lovely to hear, and it just exudes you. You know, you can see it's rooted in you. It's running in your veins, Padraic. Irene Hamilton, who is joining us in the cafe today, she's a previous guest, Scattery Island Tours. She's given us a wave there. Hi Irene. Irene has popped in. We've been planning a coffee catch up for ages, P. So it's great to see you have a virtual cup at least. Remember so well the opening of O'Bars, and it's been great to watch your journey from there. Huge respect for all that you've achieved, and looking forward to having that coffee with you soon.
Very soon, Irene. We need to do it. Message me.
There you go. So I think we'll all be getting around to those coffees that we keep saying we'd have and didn't get round to. We've a whole new value on it. Daphne Green, who again is joining us in the cafe as a past guest on the Coffee at 11 show, Daphne Green at the Green Hills Hotel. She says, delighted to be tuned in today to hear Padraic this morning. I have known him for many years and I've always admired his achievements. Looking forward to popping into one of his London pubs when I plan my first getaway. Good luck, Paddy. So
I'll have the bubbles and ice, Daphne, as always.
So yeah, so I've only one or two more. James Kavanagh, I love they're calling you different things, Padraic, you know, like we've got this, well done, Frawls. Best years of my life and fantastic memories for all my friends during the Bars era. Stay safe and every success. So
who's that from, James?
That's James Kavanagh, yeah.
James was the best DJ we ever had for years and years and years. We had lots of fun and lots of late nights.
Love it, Frawls. So yeah, I love that. That's quirky. So Margaret Atala then, welcome to the cafe, Margaret. Well done, PF. Great years working together in London and Bars. Best mentor I've ever had.
Oh wow, amazing. You know, Margaret went off and did her own hotel in Kilmallock, Debert House, and she's done an amazing job out there. So we're trying to catch up over the last week or two as well, actually. But anyway, we'll organise it in the next few days, Mags.
So you can see there, Padraic, there's lots of people who've really appreciated your influence. You know, they've loved working with you, and they've gone on, and there's an awful lot of affection there in the comments coming in from lots of people from all over. And I'm sure those that look back on the replay as well will have a similar sentiment.
Yeah.
Eamon has popped in the social media platforms for the East London Pubs Company and also for Coqbull on your own LinkedIn and Twitter and that type of thing. So do feel free to link up with Padraic there, everybody. And I think it's at this point that I pop you back over to the capable hands of our host, Colm. Padraic, if I could just say thank you for a really beautiful and humble interview. You're a fantastic guest to have. And thank you, everyone, for your valuable contributions as well.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you very much.
Back to you there, Colm.
Thanks very much indeed. And by the way, it's Princess Free Thursday in Cornstore and Limerick, and reopens.
Indeed.
Yeah. Career. It's been a joy, pleasure having you in the cafe for the chat this morning. Thank you for joining us, taking the time out, and love those comments. And it just, you know, I was sort of becoming somewhat emotional listening to them, because I moved to the Midwest in 1998 from Dublin and knew absolutely nobody day one. And it's become one of the best things I've ever done, really, because it's such a wonderful place to do business. And we've got all these hospitality people who've come in to wish you well, basically tell you they love you, because, you know, everybody's accepted that it's a rising tide lifts all boats. There's more co-opetition than competition. And it's always been like that, or largely been like that in the Midwest. And it's a joy to hear and to witness. So thank you all for your contributions there today. But in particular, thank you, Padraic Frawley. Yeah, well done you. Build a bus.
Thank you very much, Colm. Appreciate the airtime, and it's been a pleasure. A pleasure to watch you as well over the last 20 years. We've a few stories between us.
we have. If it's 20 years, well, then you were 7 at the time and I was 17. So we just leave it.
Absolutely. I'll take that one.
Anyway, we will catch up. We will catch up for sure. I sense it coming, you know. Listen, come here. It's been a pleasure, one and all. Thank you all for joining us here today. Lovely to have all the regulars here. It's a pleasure every day. And great to see some new faces and see some new names popping in from all around the world. Great to have you all here. Kieran Linehan popped in a comment there about Coqbull in Cork, and Kieran is coming in as my guest on Monday. If you got time on Monday, come back in and have a chat with this man, or listen to the chat with this man. Fascinating guy who started a business accidentally, as it happens, back 27 years ago, I think it was, 1993. My maths is correct, 1993, and started just, somebody planted a seed and he said, oh, I could do something with that. Roll on 27 years, 150 employees, right? And something like 1,600 trainees have all been trained in health and safety, awareness, etc. I can't even describe it here. And that's all basically from rural Cork. Fascinating story, fascinating gentleman. So Kieran, nice to have you in the cafe. Looking forward to Monday. Brought to you by wigwam.ie, SME peer support. So folks, pop in on Monday if you can. I want to thank the team as ever. Princess Shelley, thank you very much. Give us the usual card. Princess Shelley for producing today's show. Eamon Smith, the monk, for keeping us safe and secure. Katrina O'Brien, our rock, who's zoomed back in from Oman. It's lovely to have you here, and Katrina will make this beautiful for social media later. And by the way, when we push it out to social media, you know, honour Padraic by pushing it out as far as you can. Please, let's see where this can reach. And finally, just leaves me to say, Padraic Frawley, namaste.
Namaste, Colm. And thank you very much. Have a great weekend, Dawn. Take care. Ciao for now.